So, Brian, we ask a lot of people this. If you could sum your career up in wrestling from everything you've done so far, how would you describe it in one word?
In one word, it existed. That's 2 words.
I mean, John, you can't get any better than that, right?
No, you can't.
Dear Brian, how's the week been, mate? All right?
Yeah, it's not too bad.
Not too bad. Anything exciting or just usual stuff keeping busy?
I'm just keeping busy. There's usually never a dull moment, and especially not this weekend.
I often wonder though, because everything you do you ever get time to yourself?
Oh yeah. I'm not always working. There's plenty of time to go to the fair with the kids or whatever.
Fair enough. I mean, Jordan, I'm excited for this one. Are you, bro?
I mean, Brian knows how many times I've been, shall we say, pestering him and trying to get him on and just reaching out to him. It's just always been timings and obviously the school holidays, but I'm really excited for this one. So, Brian, thank you for coming on with me
Yep.
and Liam. I really do appreciate your time, and I'm pretty sure Liam does as well.
Absolutely, man. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Right, John, do you want to kick it off or shall I kick it off?
Right, so let's get into it. Brian, where does it begin for you as a wrestling fan?
As a wrestling fan, my first memories of wrestling, it was actually my sister that was a wrestling fan. She was a big Hulkamaniac in the 80s, and I did not like Hulk Hogan. I did not like that guy, and I didn't like wrestling. And she had a Hogan poster that I just always wanted to rip that off her wall. I just hated it. And then one day, my grandmother, not Granny, my dad's mom, moved up from Mexico, and she didn't speak any English. And she would just sit on the couch and she would ask to watch lucha. And I didn't know what that meant. So I asked my dad, and he goes, she wants to watch wrestling. And obviously, she would have watched, I don't know what she watched in Mexico, but the only wrestling that we had available was WWF. So I turned that on. I'm not sure it was exactly what she wanted to watch, but I would sit with her and watch it. And the more I watched it, the more I thought, right, it's I guess it's kind of cool. And the next thing you know, I was watching it all the time, and the rest is history.
Fair enough. So how do you go from that to like wanting to actually get into wrestling?
Oh, as soon as I saw it, I wanted to do it. I would say, we were playing around, doing. It wasn't quite backyard wrestling yet, but I was doing stuff in like 7th grade. I would have been 12, 13 years old. And then a few years later, probably around 14, 15, 16, that's when we actually started a backyard wrestling group. We had TV on public access every week. We like filmed these shows, and we ran events at this gymnastics place, and fans would show up. We didn't have a ring, but we had the gymnastics spring floor, and me and all my buddies would do pro wrestling. I was in high school at the time, and we would put on these shows and film them. And I got an editor, like the 2 VCR gimmick back in the day, and I got a title maker and put these 30-minute shows together that would air on public access. And we did that for probably 2-3 years until the gymnastics facility kind of decided, I don't know if our insurance covers this. And once they decided that was the end of the YWF.
Interesting. Jordan, back to you, bro.
So you've gone from you've pretty much done it all. I would say you've been growing up watching it. You've been in the ring. You're a journalist. You've got your own podcast. How obviously we know you're a family man as well. How do you juggle all that?
It's mostly just scheduling. I mean, with the exception of like some of the pay-per-views, I mean, I don't watch anything live. That's, kids are home from school, got to put kids to bed. I mean, I'm not watching, I'm on the West Coast of America. So it's like, I'm not watching these shows at 5:00 PM. And, I watch everything on delay starting at about 9. And, you know, Dave's usually not ready to record a show till after midnight anyway. So I can easily watch everything after everybody goes to bed and then, you know, do the Dave show. And then especially it's a lot easier during the school year because Observer Live, the kids are at school. So that's not a problem. After dark, the kids are at school. So it's mostly just anybody who works at home, you just got to try to, you know, work around everybody's schedule. And so that's basically how I try to do it. Um, but it's possible. I mean, I think that anybody who says that they work like sun up to sundown, I think you're inefficient. I mean, there's a lot that you can get done in a shorter amount of time than it would seem sometimes if you look at for example, all of the stuff that I churn out. It's not a 24/7 deal.
I see you, man.
I want to ask about the Chop and Roll Express. This is a comedy name. How did this all come about?
I was retired for a long time, and in 2006, 2007, my buddy Mikey, who was a subscriber, he had heard an interview that I did with Larry Sweeney, and he thought it was a really good interview. And he said, you know, you guys got a lot of chemistry. You want to do a match with Larry? And I was like, I don't know. I think this was actually the first show that Mikey ever ran, and he wanted me versus Larry Sweeney on the show. And so I had retired prior to that as well. But, you know, he talked me into coming back for this match with Larry Sweeney, and it went well. And we ended up doing 3 matches together. And then, you know, once I was kind of back, I was sort of back. So I did some shows all over the place for Norm Connors and Mikey and this guy up here, Caden Matthews. So I did that probably till about 2010 or so. And then I had another retirement. And then probably around 2018, I had been doing a podcast with Filthy Tom, and he'd been a UFC fighter, and then a bunch of stuff happened, and he was not a UFC fighter anymore, and he went into pro wrestling. And we basically got to talking, and Mikey was sort of like, you know, you want to come back for another match for me? You and Tom can team up. And I had not wrestled in a long time, and the business had changed a lot. And, you know, when I was a kid watching The Ultimate Warrior, Dino Bravo, these WWF shows from the 80s, you know, that was a period where I was athletic. I was a gymnast. I was, you know, and I watched the matches and I thought I could do that. And I did, and I could. But nowadays, you know, you look at the matches, and especially because I'm older, it was kind of like, I can't do what these people do nowadays. But Mikey said, I'll get you the Rock and Roll Express. You and Tom against the Rock and Roll Express. And I was like, I'm in. And so we did the match, me and Tom, the Chop and Roll Express, because by that time my only move was like a chop. I think I had a chop and a super kick. That was about it. And so we did the match with the Rock and Roll Express, and I had a great time. And then it was kind of like, man, let's do more. And so we pretty much did matches pretty regularly. And I did singles matches too, probably up until I think the pandemic. And then obviously it fell off for several years. And then I think I had one more match after that with Tom, the Chop and Roll Express versus the Bang Bros, who are no longer the Bang Bros due to, I guess, trademark claim or something. But anyway, that was pretty much the end. It didn't go exactly how I wanted. I quit on the mic afterwards as a shoot, and I haven't been back. So that's how that worked out.
Interesting. John, back to you, bro.
So you mentioned Brian, obviously previously you're Dave Meltzer. How did your relationship become about with Dave?
Well, back in the 90s, everybody had 900 hotlines, you know, 1-900, whatever. And they would have them for wrestling news, like WWF had a hotline, WCW, The Observer had a hotline, The Torch had a hotline. I mean, there were hotlines everywhere. And so I started a hotline, and like it was going really well. But the thing with 900 numbers is if you called and rang up like a $900 bill, and then all you had to do was tell the phone company, I refuse to pay these charges, and they didn't make you pay. And then whoever the provider was, in this case, me, I not only had to pay back whatever my cut would have been, I had to pay back the entire $900. So some kid called and rang up like a $2,000 bill over the course of a month or two. And his parents, were like, we ain't paying this bill. And so I got hit with this $2,000 bill for this. And I didn't have $2,000 at the time. And I was like, oh my God. So, long story short, that was the end of the hotline. And I ended up, I was an observer reader. I'd never talked to Dave in my life. And so I sent him a fax, and I said, I think it was Scott Hudson was leaving the Observer hotline, and I sent him a fax, and I said, I've been doing the 900 line. I know you've seen my newsletter. I'd be interested in taking his spot on your hotline. And he said yes. And so that's how I started working with Dave. And I did that hotline for probably a year or two. And then in 1999, IATA started up, which was an online radio station. And he was going to do it, I think he was going to do it solo. But he did one show. It was like a 2-hour show every day, like Monday through Friday. He did one show and he was like, I need a co-host. And so he called me and I agreed to do it. And I pretty much helped co-host via telephone like every day for a year or two and free. And then finally they started to pay me. And like, I thought it was rich, and it wasn't even much. It was like $200. I think it was 200 a week is what it was. And I thought it was rich, $200 a week. And so like I moved out, got an apartment, the whole shebang. And like as soon as I signed the like 1-year lease or whatever, IATA went out of business. And so that was basically how I first met Dave, is doing that show together when he needed a co-host. And then from there, we did Observer Live on IATA or on Sports Byline together. And then I started my website in 2005. I tried to get him in 2005, but he didn't think it was going to work. And so we had 3 years, and it grew like really fast. And so after 3 years, he was doing Yahoo MMA reporting, and it was just too much for him. And so he basically called and said, I'm ready to do this website. And so he came on in 2008.
Awesome.
I want to talk about the books, Dave. Obviously, you wrote, because you brought Brian, sorry, The Death of WCW. How did this all come about, the process?
That one was Artie Reynolds of Wrestle Crap. He had written Wrestle Crap, and they had contacted him about doing another book, and he was also a subscriber. And so he contacted me and he said, hey, you want to co-author this book about WCW? And I said, sure. They just died. I could use some cash after IATA went under. And so, the original book was, I can't even remember what it was. It was something like, I can't remember what the original thing was, but we started on it and it just became a narrative. And so we wrote it. And, this was 2004. There weren't a lot of wrestling books. And so we wrote this big, long book, and the publisher was just like, this thing's way too long. So we drastically cut a bunch of stuff out, and it got published, and it did really well. And then 10 years later, they said, hey, you want to do because by 2014, there were books everywhere. So at that point, they knew that fans could like read a longer book. And so they offered to do an expanded edition. And so we basically put everything back that we'd originally written and then updated it with a bunch of new stuff. And the new book was like 400 pages or something like that. And that one sold really well also. And, it's 2025. I just got a royalty check like 20 years later. It sold 108,000 copies.
Jesus.
So I mean, it could not possibly have done better. I was kind of spoiled because, writing your first book and doing 100,000 copies, I did another book in 2019, the 100 Things WWE Fans Should Know and Do Before They Die. That did not do 100,000 copies. It's a bad timing. WWE was just like, everyone hated it in 2019. It was a terrible time for the book to come out. But interestingly enough, I just got the check for that book as well. And this year I got the biggest check I've gotten in years from that book. So I think now, I don't know what happened, but like people apparently have discovered it now 5 years later because there's like all these new WWE fans. So now that one's doing pretty well. So I'm pretty happy with how things have gone.
Okay. John, back to you, bro.
So you mentioned earlier that you started your own podcast. Was it 2005? Was that the Figure 4 Weekly, if I'm correct?
Well, the Figure 4 Weekly was the newsletter. And, from 95 to 2005, I just had a print newsletter and I was doing Observer Live. And in 2005, like it was not doing well. I mean, the postage costs were sky high and the printing costs were sky high. I was like, man, this is not working. And so I talked to my brother-in-law and I just said, dude, I don't know what to do. Like, is there any way to like email this newsletter or something so that I can save on postage? And he goes, why don't you just do a website? Just start a website and we'll put the newsletter behind a paywall and you won't have to do any mailing at all. It's all profit because there's no printing, there's no postage. I was like, all right. So we launched Figure 4 online and all it was a website and you could get the newsletter if you signed up instead of having it mailed to you. So, we did that it wasn't actually very long. It was like a month or two. And I think maybe the Torch had a website, and I think they were doing these audio recordings that they called hotlines or something like that. And I was like, can we do some audio or something? Like maybe I could review just do some audio like we do on Observer Live. And I will never forget, he goes, why don't you do a podcast? And like in 2005, it wasn't even a word. I was like, what is a podcast? Like there weren't even podcasts. I said, what is a podcast? He goes, you record it and then like we put it online and people can download it on their iTunes. And I was like, okay. And like they pay for it or whatever. And he goes, yeah. And so I had no idea whatsoever. And so we started the podcast. And what I basically did was I would record these podcasts for the website. Because I don't know if you could do paid iTunes podcasts at the time. I think I did the podcast for the website, where if you were a subscriber, you could hear the podcasts. But once a week, I would do one free, and I would put it on iTunes, and the free one would plug the website. And so this thing exploded once I did that. And we got like a ton of subscribers, and like all of a sudden, everybody, they were more into the audio than the newsletter. And at that point, it was kind of like, we need to just go full on into podcasts. So I did Figure 4 Daily, where I interviewed guests. And then we had the Brian and Vinny show, where we reviewed shows. And then I would have Dave on as a guest, like once, I think it was once every 2 weeks before he came on board in 2008. And so, yeah, like there was, I don't know if it's still there, but on Wikipedia, they had a history of podcasts page. And we were there as one of the first podcasts. Like we got in like at the very beginning before it was even really like a word. And I think that's one of the reasons that it worked out was we were on the ground floor, like without even knowing we were on the ground floor of anything. It was just like, here's this iTunes thing and you can do whatever. And that's how that all started.
Awesome, man.
I want to ask you about the wrestling fan base. How would you describe the wrestling fan base as a whole?
I don't know, man. They've changed a lot. They're very passionate, one way or the other. I mean, I think it's any fan base though. Like any fan base is going to be very passionate and they like what they like. And I will say that nowadays you go online, you go on Twitter, and you go wherever, and you get this idea that these people are out of their minds. And really, I would say that the vast majority of any fan base, they're just like normal people. But you hear from the ones that are like, you know, and so we hear from those people all the time, and so you get this idea that that's the whole fan base, but it's really not. Most wrestling fans are just like, normal people. They like wrestling. They quietly listen to their podcasts. They never say anything. But then you have the ones that are like loud and they make their voices heard, and it's usually anger. I don't like this. I don't like that. I don't want to hear about this, whatever. But I think the vast majority are largely just, normal, friendly people that like wrestling.
I think that's fair. John, back to you, bro.
Ryan, what is your opinion on WWE acquiring AAA? Do you think it's good or bad?
Well, the thing with AAA is that I see a lot of people romanticizing the old AAA. And, the old AAA, they ran some terrible shows. They had some big problems, I mean, there were highs and lows, but I mean, AAA was, I think you could sort of, it's probably not fair and the Lucha fans will get mad, but you could kind of compare it a little bit to TNA back in the day where it was like wild and crazy and something was always going wrong and there was always some disaster happening. And so, WWE has acquired them. And like, I really liked the last AAA show that WWE did, the last two. And I'm very excited for this show. And the one thing that I'm a little trepidatious about is if you look at the card for this show, there's more and more main roster people working AAA. And my ideal would be, a couple, but largely it's the AAA roster. You're bringing in new luchadors, you're grooming new luchadors for the future. And it's really just WWE running the show and making sure the production looks good and it actually airs wherever they say it's going to air and, whatever. Like, I want the spirit of the old AAA to be there. But at the same time, I don't want all of the disasters of the old AAA. I want it to be like a professional version of the old AAA, which I guess really isn't the old AAA, but still a professional version with the spirit of AAA and Lucha Libre. And I did feel that way watching the last show. I hope it's like that tonight. I really wanted to go to this show, but just the Vegas prices are like just outlandish. I'm not paying $600 to fly to Vegas. It's a 2-hour.
It's are extraordinary, aren't they?
Ridiculous. So I can watch it on YouTube for free. But I did want to go. Like, I really like this, what they've done with AAA so far. And, it seems like a lot of the people involved are pretty bullish on it as well. So I hope they can keep it largely a lucha promotion with just some modern day WWE cash inflow, production inflow, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
Okay, I like that. Steve, I'm going to follow on obviously what John has said there. And what's your thoughts on obviously the TNA and WWE partnership?
Well, a lot of people are, I shouldn't say that. If you go online, a lot of people are down on it. But I think that it's actually, I mean, the thing I keep hearing is it's not benefiting TNA in any way. And that is not true at all. I mean, if you look at TNA attendance numbers and ticket sales and just like the number of people that are talking about TNA now, I mean, it's way, way, way up. And they have, I mean, the one thing about it is, WWE is the larger promotion, obviously. They're in control. So like, the TNA guys are always putting over the WWE guys. I'm waiting to see a little bit of that go the other way. And, now that they announced Mike Santana and Trick for Bound for Glory in a singles match, I think We're going to have a TNA guy actually win the TNA title back from a WWE guy, which I think they do need to do. You don't need to do it all the time, but I do think that you need to do it here and there. And I like it because, you can send WWE talent that, like, we got nothing to do with this person. Send them there for a while. You can bring TNA guys to NXT, which has made the show better because there are a lot of talented people in TNA. And, you've also got the ability to send a Trick Williams to TNA, and he's working like a lot of shows. He's working NXT, then he does an NXT house show, then he goes to TNA, then he does a TNA TV, does a TNA pay-per-view. Like, that guy has improved a lot, having the opportunity to do that. And other people will as well. So I don't see any downside to it. I mean, it hasn't hurt WWE. It hasn't hurt TNA. I don't think it's helped WWE much. Maybe just, a little bit more excitement on the NXT shows because you see these different people, but it's definitely helped TNA. So I think it's been a big positive.
Okay. John, back to you, bro.
So we've not mentioned one particular company, and that's AEW. What is your opinion? I know, and I've asked all of these other people, but for it to come from you, it'd be really, really awesome. What is your opinion on? Do you think WWE is countering their shows?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's been done on purpose up to this point, and WrestlePalooza obviously was booked on the same day as All Out for a reason. Obviously, they booked 3 shows over All In weekend for a reason. And, I have pretty much been told that it's just going to keep going. And it's not just going to keep going, but, Tony moving All Out, he had it at a specific time. They put WrestlePalooza head to head, and he ended up moving his show earlier. I mean, I know people argue that this was like a smart idea and everything like that. And maybe like for one day, maybe it's a better idea. I don't think it is. But the fact is, once he did that, I was pretty much told, man, they're going to go full bore from this point. And if that means booking a show in the afternoon against his, and then when he moves it, they also move it, or also leaving the show but adding another big stacked show head to head. I mean, they're going full bore against this guy now. And if you listen to any of these TKO execs, I mean, it's not even like a mystery. I mean, they are cutthroat. I mean, they want to make as much money as possible, and they don't want any competition. They'll do interviews saying, there have been a lot of complaints from fans about ticket prices, but we're only going to raise the ticket prices higher because they'll literally say this. It's all about money. They want to make as much money as possible, and they want to run this business. They've got they've bought AAA. They've got right of, like, if TNA is ever going to sell, WWE gets the first opportunity to purchase. And I mean, they want to own everything. And this head-to-head thing is just, it's one aspect of it. And now they're talking about, TKO. There's talk of one of their properties wanting to buy WBD, which means they would own the stations that own AEW's television contract. So it's 100% a war, and it's all by design.
It's good competition, though. It's good competition, isn't it, for wrestling? Let's be honest.
Well, I mean, it's good. What you want is 2 strong companies, and it's funny because everybody knows that. Even Vince McMahon knew that. And I'm sure everybody in TKO knows that what's best for the business is probably 2 strong organizations, but they cannot help themselves. They want to crush number 2, make sure they're like a distant number 2. Like, they still want them to have, like, give these guys experience and get them over to a degree and everything, because they're always going to need new talent. but they want to be far and away, like not even within shouting distance, number one to everybody else. And if they can own you, they will. That's their business model.
I think that's fair. John, about to you, bro.
So something that got recently announced, I'm pretty sure you know what I'm going to ask you,
Oh yeah.
is I'm very biased. I have my opinions on it, but you'll know with us being in the UK now, I think, and you can probably agree that international crowds are good, but I'm not saying anything against Saudi Arabia, but I think the UK should have had the first dibs when it comes to WrestleMania. That's just being biased.
Well, I understand what you're saying, but it's exactly what I was just talking about. They want money. And this Saudi WrestleMania, I mean, listen, I threw out the number, but this is at minimum. At minimum, this weekend is going to generate well over $100 million for WWE for one weekend. Okay. When they run
Sick.
Las Vegas, for example, okay, they're going to run Las Vegas. They're going to get a site fee for Las Vegas. Okay. I don't know what it is. I actually thought it was higher, but I think the number was like $8 million. Like the city is paying them $8 million to bring WrestleMania to the city. So like they had a deal with New Orleans, and then Vegas, said, you know what, we'll offer you this amount of money. And I think it was about $8 million. And so they pulled out of New Orleans after announcing it, like everything. They pulled out to go to Vegas for $8 million. Okay. Saudi is going to pay them over $100 million for that show. So London's not coming up with $100 million. And no city is coming up with $100 million. And so they're going to go where the money is. And dude, they're making 50 to 60 million for like a crown jewel. Okay. So I said 100 million, but the fact of the matter is, if you're WWE, it's like you're paying us 60 million for a crown jewel. We're giving you WrestleMania. They may make $100 million just for WrestleMania. Then they're running SmackDown there. Then they're running Raw there. They're doing the Hall of Fame. They're doing the whole Mania weekend. I mean, they're going to make like an impossible amount of money for this show.
250 million.
And WWE had been talking about, okay, fans are upset, they want to travel, but they don't want to go to Saudi. Well, maybe we'll do we'll do a year with 2 WrestleManias. Well, I can't say this 100%, but the rumor is Saudi doesn't want that. It's like, we got WrestleMania. That's the one WrestleMania you're going to run. And I mean, if they're putting their foot down there, I mean, WWE can say, hey, fine, you get the one WrestleMania, 150 million for that show. Add the extra 20 million for Raw, whatever. I mean, this could be a big, it will be the biggest weekend for wrestling in the history of Earth by like multiples. And that's why they're going. They piss off some fans in England. They piss off some fans in America. They're like, we're making $120 million for a day. Like, sorry.
That's mad.
Oh, it's crazy.
And that kind of leads me on to my next question. I mean, I think I know the answer as well. Do you think wrestling's more about money now than fans?
Well, I think they know. Here's the thing. I think they know that without fans, they don't have a business. Okay. So they're always going to do. You can't say it's not about the fans. Okay. If the fans decide that they want AJ Lee as the women's champion, she's going to become the women's champion. If the fans decide they want Jey Uso to win the Rumble and win the title, he's gonna. They're going to try to please their fans in any way that they see. They're not going to do something that's going to hurt business, but if they think it's something that the fans will enjoy and it will be, a net positive, they're going to do it. They're going to give you what you want in a lot of different ways. But if they can make money, they're going to make money. And the thing with ticket prices is ticket prices are already ridiculous. Like when they ran the O2 and, or or it wasn't AO2. It was the show they did in France, where they had a larger gate than Taylor Swift.
Yeah, I saw that. That's mad.
That's actually legitimate. That's what their ticket prices are like. And the fact is, when you have ticket prices that are absolutely sky high and you're still selling out every single show, unfortunately, what that tells you is we could charge more. And they are going to charge more. And they're going to probably keep raising prices until they hit that point where, okay, that Raw drew 7,000 in an 11,000 seat building. All right, well, you know, that SummerSlam sold 25,000 in a 40,000 seat building. Like when we start consistently getting things like that, that's when they're going to back the ticket prices down. But where they are now with like unbelievably high prices and they're still selling out every single show and they're putting like Finn Balor puppets on sale for $100 and they're gone immediately. It's like your fan base is willing to pay a lot more than you're charging and they're going to take that money.
Okay, I think that's fair. John, back to you, bro.
So I've seen a lot of stuff floating around on social media, and there's a specific superstar or professional wrestler. Do you think Chris Jericho will go back to WWE in your own opinion?
I think that he should. I don't know if he will, but I think he should because someone mentioned this on Observer Live. Somebody, I think, maybe text message or emailed or whatever, but they said, you know, we're in an era now where WWE is all about, like, look at the John Cena retirement tour. How much money have they made on the John Cena retirement tour? They are making bank.
Don't want to think.
And, you know, NXT this week. What was NXT? It was all about building up next week's NXT Homecoming.
Mm-hmm.
All these big names are on the show. And Tyler Breeze. Nothing against the guy, but so what this is an era where fans are into paying money to see big names come to their town. And they're running towns less. I can't remember the last time they were in Seattle. You know, it's not like this is a small market, but they're not coming here every month. So, you know, for Chris Jericho, 53, I think he is, you know, he's probably on the tail end of his career. I don't think there's any better place for him to go than WWE, where they'll give him a lot of money to be Chris Jericho coming to your town. I'm not saying it'll be like a retirement tour, but, you know, one more big run for Chris Jericho in WWE. And I mean, I'm sure he's got enough money for 10 lifetimes, but, you know, he could make so much money doing a Saudi appearance, that 2027 WrestleMania. He could make so much money. Like, there's so much money to be made in WWE. And you can make a ton of money in AEW too. Like, Tony's going to offer a lot of money, but I just think that at this stage of his career, for who he is and his name value, like, this is the time to capitalize on one big final run in WWE.
Okay. So one final question from me, Brian, is what do you think the business is going to look like in like 5 years' time, the rest of the business as a whole?
Oh God, I have no idea. I mean, I feel like if we look back 5 years, it hasn't changed that dramatically, in the sense that you have WWE, you have AEW, you have TNA. Yeah, there have been a lot of things that have changed. WWE now owns AAA, and, you know, AEW is not quite as hot as they were, but you still have WWE and AEW. And if you look back 5 years from 2020, largely the same with the exception of the birth of AEW. And, you know, AEW, their birth, you know, the reason it was a success was because of how horrible WWE was doing. And WWE is not doing poorly now. AEW is not doing poorly now. They're not doing as well as they were, but they're doing fine. I don't see another new promotion popping up. So my guess is in 5 years, it's going to be WWE is going to be number one. AEW is going to be number two. TNA might be a closer number two. Like if they get CW and WWE starts sending a bunch of guys over to, you know, TNA on the CW, I mean, they could quickly end up becoming the number 2 promotion. But AEW is still going to be strong. They got strong television. And, in 2027, their deal's going to be up. They may get re-up for another year. They may not. But I find it impossible to believe that some station, some streaming service, some whatever isn't going to want AEW programming. So I think in 2030, it's going to be largely what it is now. WWE's popular. AEW is not as popular, but they're still there. Same with TNA. I think that's what it's. They're going to be like little ups and downs and dips, and this may buy this, and this guy may go there, and may end up on that station, may end up. But I think largely the companies are strong enough that I don't see a massive change happening in 5 years.
Okay, John, back to you, bro.
So the final few questions, Brian. Who can you see jumping ship from WWE to AEW in the next year?
WWE to AEW. I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't see like a lot of, and certainly I don't see any like big name jumps. They got a lot of people that have signed fairly recently, and I mean AEW's got a lot of money to spend, but I mean the gap between the two in the sense of, how much money you can make, how big a star you can be worldwide. I mean, WWE's got a lot going for it for a lot of people right now. I mean, we saw a lot of free agents, we had like Stephanie Vaquer and Julia and what's his name now? JC Mateo. And, these people, they all chose to go to WWE. And, there have been some, there will always be some, like Josh Alexander is a good example. He's, I'm sure, offered good money from WWE. But for him specifically, he wanted to go where he would have the best matches with the people that he felt were the best opponents. You're always going to have people that choose that.
Yeah.
I don't know how many people like that are in WWE now because it's been 5 years. Like if you were Drew McIntyre and you were more about, I want to have great matches than be, a sports entertainer, he would have left, but he didn't. So, I can see, I see like for the first few years of AEW's existence, we saw a lot of people going from WWE to AEW. This next 5 years, I think it's going to be the other way. I think we're going to see a lot of people from AEW. Their deals are going to come up and they're going to go to WWE. And obviously there's finite spaces in WWE. So, they will release people and, people they release are going to end up in AEW. But, we have not seen a lot of people going WWE to AEW. And it's now been 5 years. And I just think, of late, it's been the other way. AEW to WWE. Mariah May and Ricky Saints and Ethan Page, and I'm sure there's going to be others. So I think it's going to be more this direction for the next 5 years, whereas the first 5 years, it was that direction.
Yeah, I see what you mean there, man. So the final two questions. Who is your Mount Rushmore of professional wrestling?
Oh, God. I don't know, man. I mean, like when I was a kid, it was Shawn Michaels, Bret Hart, Ric Flair. I mean, those were the top three. When I was a little bit older, you could add Chris Benoit. I think he'd probably have to be carved off the mountain now. But before all that happened, I watched that guy wrestle and was like, holy smokes. And, you can look all around the world. Like, problem with the Mount Rushmore is 4. It's like, you just can't do it. You'd have to pick like one from Japan and one from Mexico and only one from America. It's hard. But those were the ones growing up. And, nowadays, like, not the Okada now, but like in 2018, 2019, I mean, I was convinced that's the best wrestler I've ever seen in my life. And you look at like a Will Ospreay now and Kenny Omega. I mean, these guys are absolutely unbelievable. And, Bryan Danielson. I mean, there's just so many. I can't even do a Mount Rushmore. I mean, it's just I guess if you go historically, it'd probably have to be like, I don't know. I don't even know who would be. I mean, Hogan's got to be on there. Ric Flair's got to be on there. Probably like Ricky Dozan, El Santo. I mean, there's a lot. I couldn't even start.
Yeah, there's loads in there. Literally, there's loads, and I ask every guest that I have on that, and to hear people's different answers and styles of wrestling in it, because it all goes on what you like.
Yeah, I was looking at it more as like historically. Like if it is what I like, then it's like Ric Flair, Shawn Michaels, Bret Hart, Chris Benoit. I mean, those were the four wrestlers growing up that, like, if you go on YouTube and you find any of my matches, okay, you're only going to see those four guys. Okay. I wasn't as good as any of them, but like you'll watch and you'll go, okay, he got that suplex from Benoit. Okay. He got that chop from Ric Flair. He got that, backdrop and the bump off the top. And, you'll see those four guys flip bump into the corner from Shawn Michaels. You'll see those four guys in all of my matches and nobody else. So if you're talking about like as a wrestler, who did I emulate as my Mount Rushmore? That's those four guys.
Yeah. And the final question: what is an inspirational message from Bryan? I always ask it because we've always got
message.
Yeah, you got to try and be positive in this world.
I'm always positive. Just keep going. I mean, that's really the inspirational message. Is just got to keep going. I think the main thing, like whenever I do an interview like this, people ask about like, tell me about how this started or how that started or whatever. And, you go back and you remember, okay, I did this and I did this and I did this. And like, by the end of the show, I really think like, my God, I've done a lot of stuff in my life. But I don't sit every day and like, I'm not like the Miz. I just give my resume when I'm on the street with somebody. I don't think about this stuff. It's like, I finished Death of WCW and like I moved on to the next thing. And I wrote the second book. I finished. I said I would never do it again. I moved on to the next thing. Then I got they offered the other book. I moved on to the next. It's like you just get it done and you just keep going. And you get it done and you keep going. And that's good things and bad things. We've had some disasters site-wise and, in life. And, you try to learn from whatever bad thing happened. You try to look at it like, okay, that bad thing happened, but what can you turn that into an opportunity to learn something? And then you just move on. And you keep on moving on. Like people ask all the time, like, remember when you interviewed so-and-so? I don't remember that. I do not remember that at all. Remember on the show when you did this? I don't remember. And it's not like I got CTE. It's like I did the show and then I moved on to the next show. I had 2 more shows that day. So it's just like move on. Opportunity comes. Do your best. Do the best you can. Move on to the next thing. Something goes wrong. What can you do about it? Move on to the next thing. And you just keep going.
Awesome. Liam, do you want to end it for us, mate?
Absolutely, Bryan. I mean, I can't thank you for obviously taking time to talk to us, man. Do you know what I mean? I know you're a busy guy and stuff like that.
It's been tough, but I made it.
Not a problem, mate. And like we always said on this show, is there anything you'd like to plug, my man?
Just WrestlingObserver.com. I mean, if you like the last hour, I got 15,000 podcasts on the website, WrestlingObserver.com. And it's a subscription site. You get the podcast, you get the Wrestling Observer newsletter. We got a board, all sorts of great stuff up there. It's $14.99 a month, but it's worth it no matter what anyone says. And if you don't want to spend $14, if you only want podcasts, we have Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. Those are all $9.99, just the podcasts. And the easiest way to find them is f4wonline.com/Apple. f4wonline.com/Spotify, f4wonline.com/YouTube. You can watch the shows on YouTube if you want to see my wacky face every day. But those are all the options. And I'm going to give you a half scoop. I might have another big project to announce real soon.
Ooh,
No one knows
Interesting.
but you guys now.
interesting.
Okay, John, I'll let you end the show.
Brian, like we said earlier, obviously we tried to just get you on. We've got you on. I've enjoyed the last 15 minutes. I know we've kind of gone over from what we said, but I do
Right.
appreciate your time. So thank you very much for coming on.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, and we'll do it again sometime.
Definitely, man.
Absolutely.